It was one of those gray, rainy mornings where the world feels heavier than usual. Mark's shoulders sagged as he trudged down the wet sidewalk, his worn shoes squelching with each step. Life had been unkind lately, his job had been cut, bills were piling up, and even his friends seemed too busy to notice his quiet despair. He felt invisible, like he was just a shadow passing through the world, unnoticed and unappreciated. As he passed a small corner cafe, he barely noticed the bustling people inside. But something made him stop. A simple act, a stranger holding a coffee cup out of the window, was about to shift the course of his life in a way he could never have imagined. Before we dive into Mark's story, I want to take a moment to invite you to join our community. If stories about kindness, hope, and human connection touch your heart, please subscribe to Kindness Story Hub, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us spread these meaningful stories far and wide. Mark had been struggling for months, moving through life with a sense of numbness. He had lost his job at a local warehouse after the company downsized, and every day since felt like a battle just to get out of bed. He lived alone in a small apartment, and the loneliness was suffocating. He avoided calling old friends because he didn't want to burden anyone with his troubles. Even grocery shopping had become a chore, a reminder that he was alone in the world. That morning, Mark's routine was no different. He had no breakfast, no coffee, and no hope for a better day. As he walked past the corner cafe, he noticed an elderly man standing near the entrance, smiling warmly at everyone who passed. The man's presence was simple, almost ordinary, but there was something oddly comforting about him. "Excuse me, young man," the elderly man said, his voice soft but kind. "Would you like a cup of coffee?" "My treat." Mark froze. He was used to being ignored, passed by, and overlooked. He expected people to avert their eyes or rush past him. But this man, this complete stranger, was offering him a small gift without asking for anything in return. I can't," Mark stammered, unsure of what to say. "Please," the man insisted gently. "It's just a cup of coffee. No strings attached. No judgment. Just a little kindness to start your day." Mark hesitated. He had never been comfortable accepting help, and the idea of a stranger giving him something felt both strange and humbling. But something about the man's smile, the warmth in his eyes, made it impossible to refuse. He nodded slowly, and the man handed him a steaming cup of coffee. The aroma was rich, comforting, and somehow familiar, like a small piece of home he hadn't realized he was missing. "Thank you," Mark whispered, his voice barely audible. "You're welcome," the man said. Sometimes, all it takes is a small gesture to make someone's day brighter. Remember that. Mark took a tentative sip. The warmth of the coffee seeped into him, chasing away the chill of the rainy morning. But more than that, the gesture itself, the simple, selfless act of someone caring, made a crack in the armor he had built around his heart. He walked away from the cafe feeling lighter, though he didn't fully understand why. The day ahead still held challenges, but for the first time in months, Mark felt seen. He felt valued. He felt human. Over the next few weeks, Mark kept thinking about that small act of kindness. He found himself noticing other people's struggles, feeling a spark of empathy he hadn't experienced in a long time. He started smiling at strangers, helping a neighbor carry groceries, and even volunteering at a local food bank. Each act of kindness, no matter how small, seemed to ripple through his life, changing him in ways he couldn't have predicted. One day, as he was volunteering, he overheard a conversation between two people about a man who had been helping out at the food bank every week. "He's been such a blessing," one woman said. "A kind soul in a world that can feel so harsh." Mark felt a lump in his throat. He realized that he had become that kind of person, the one whose simple gestures could touch someone else's heart. He remembered the elderly man and the coffee, and he understood something profound: kindness is never wasted. Even the smallest act can change someone's entire life. As Mark continued on this journey, he started to rebuild his own life. He found a new job that he enjoyed, made friends who genuinely cared, and began to write in a journal about his experiences. Each day, he reflected on the importance of being kind, not because it earned him anything, but because it had the power to lift others, just as he had been lifted then. One rainy morning, similar to that first day, Mark decided to pay it forward in a small but meaningful way. He stood outside the same corner cafe and offered a cup of coffee to the next person who looked tired, lonely, or lost. A young woman, drenched from the rain, hesitated at first. But when she accepted his offer, Mark saw in her eyes the same mix of surprise, gratitude, and relief he had felt. It was in that moment that Mark truly understood the chain reaction of kindness. The gift he had received had not only changed his life, it was now changing the lives of others. A small cup of coffee, a simple smile, a moment of attention, these were the things that built a bridge between people, reminding everyone that they were not alone in the world. Mark's story spread quietly throughout his community. Neighbors shared the tale of a man who, despite his own hardships, made a habit of lifting others up with small, thoughtful gestures. Local news outlets ran short stories about him, highlighting how his actions inspired others to pay kindness forward. People started leaving notes of encouragement in mailboxes, donating to local charities, and even organizing community cleanup events. All because one stranger had offered a cup of coffee with no expectations. Years later, Mark still remembered that rainy morning and the elderly man who had unknowingly transformed his life. He never saw the man again, but he carried his lesson everywhere, that kindness is a powerful force, capable of creating ripples that stretch far beyond a single moment. Mark often shared this story with others, especially when he met someone feeling hopeless or overlooked. He would tell them, "You never know how much a small act of kindness can mean. It might just change someone's life, maybe even your own." And that's the beautiful thing about kindness, it doesn't have to be grand or expensive. It doesn't require fame, wealth, or recognition. It only requires a heart willing to care, a willingness to see others, and the courage to act, even in small ways. If you ever feel powerless to make a difference, remember Mark and that rainy morning. A simple gesture, a cup of coffee, a kind word, or a smile can create a ripple that transforms lives in ways you might never imagine. The world doesn't need more grand heroes, it needs more small acts of human kindness. Imagine how different the world would be if each of us chose to offer kindness every single day. One small gift, one thoughtful word, one simple act can set off a chain reaction that lifts spirits, restores hope, and strengthens communities. And perhaps, like Mark, you too will discover that in giving, you receive far more than you ever expected. Today, reach out to someone, offer a hand, share a smile, or simply say, "I see you, and you matter." Because the truth is, a stranger's small gift might just change your entire life, too.